Well, today we're excited to speak with Dean Arscott, who is a sand sculptor, and he is part of Siesta Key Crystal Classic International Sand Sculpting Festival. I said that all in one breath. That's November 15th through the 18th. It's 9 to 5. It's an invitation only. So that's one of these events where you need to be there, watch them do their work, and see them survive and thrive in the elements. There's music, there's contests, there's food. It sounds like a great party, and we're going to hear all about it in just a minute. Check. Well, hello. Hi. I am Jeffrey Kinn, Sarasota Rising Living Arts Festival, Sarasota. I'm so happy to be a part of Behind the Masterpiece, where we can share stories from our region and talk to amazing people who are creating art and making a difference in our community. Thank you to Visit Sarasota County for, just thinking of this and realizing how important the arts are and giving me the opportunity to talk to amazing people like Dean Arscott. Hi, Dean.
Hi, how you doing?
Well, you know what? I'm good. I'm doing a little arts festival here in town, and you're getting ready to do something big here in town too. So I think we have a lot in common. So how about we talk about it a little bit?
Of course.
So where am I talking to you from? Where are you at right now?
I live in St. Petersburg. I've been here for a few years now, but I grew up, born and raised in Central Maryland, and came down to Sarasota to attend Ringling College of Art and Design. Graduated in 2008. Stuck around for one reason or another for a couple of years, but then kind of landed in St. Petersburg.
So, people are going to think about you and think about sand. And I don't think in Central Maryland, there's probably much sand. Is there, or is there not? Central Maryland doesn't sound like a place for a sand sculpture to come from.
I'm looking at a job I have in Ocean City, Maryland on my calendar right now.
Okay.
So to contextualize it a bit, sand is the second most widely used natural resource on Earth, next to water. So every construction project ever, anywhere, uses massive amounts of sand. Concrete is essentially 75% sand. So it is a huge natural resource. So sand isn't just found on the beach. Most sand is pulled from the ground. A lot of the stuff we use for projects where we need to truck in truckloads of sand for projects, that's mined from the ground. You can't take sand from the beaches because cities spend millions of dollars replenishing the beaches to keep them in. So we work on the beach a lot, but it's not always beach sand that we're using.
Wow, look at you teaching us something. I didn't expect to learn anything. That is fascinating. Although I live in Sarasota, and you dig 3 inches into my yard, and it's basically sand too. So I guess we live on a sandbar, right?
Yeah. I mean, what folks refer to as fill dirt here, quote unquote, is essentially sand considered other states. So it depends. Yeah, so we're on a big island here.
So we are. So you picked a good career with a bountiful amount of natural resources to work your magic. I've got to say, of course. So you went to school here at Ringling. Mm-hmm. Is that when you started beaching it? And were you that little kid with a pail and a bucket on the beach, like making sandcastles when you were a kid, or how did this all happen?
Yeah, I mean, no more than anybody else. I went to the beach sometimes as a kid. We had our Thanksgiving tradition of coming down to Disney, and we did Seaside Heights, New Jersey, for a number of summers and stuff. But it wasn't on my radar at all, really, until a couple of years after I graduated from Ringling. So I was an illustration major, so you're drawing, painting, that type of thing. Out of graduation, I was kind of segueing into what would widely probably be considered as graphic design, but I was doing kind of illustrative graphic design, so logos, concert posters, branding, that type of thing. And 2008 wasn't the best year to graduate college. Basically, I had interviews with a number of companies because Ringling's got a great placement program. But the story I was getting left and right was, we'd love to hire you, but we can't because the economy is crap at the moment. So apply for this unpaid internship on the other side of the country. And that didn't quite work out. So I was freelancing for a couple of years. And then eventually, through Ringling, they work with a website called College Central Network, which is a job posting website. So you can post generally, or to a specific trade school or whatnot. So I happened to see Sand Sculptors Wanted. And my boss, who, his base is just down from the Ringling Museum, he had posted 2 Ringlings. So took me out on Lido Beach one day, and I was in Fort Lauderdale the next day on my first job. And that was 14 years ago now.
That's crazy, actually, if you think about it. I mean, because graphic design, that doesn't mean that anyone can sculpt. I mean, that's a one-dimensional art going into a 3-dimensional art or something like that. I mean, that's completely different.
Yeah. I mean, more like categorically, I would say what I ended up doing mostly would be categorized as graphic design, but it was still illustrative. I still started, with pencil and paper, and then eventually it turned digital. But like I tell a lot of people, drawing, painting, sculpting, it's all kind of the same ideas and concepts. You just got different stuff on the end of your stick, if you will. So if you can draw, you can sculpt. Obviously, there's a learning curve, especially with a medium like sand. But anybody with a willingness to shovel and down to try it out, generally if they stick with it, they can improve.
I got to tell you, I'm going to so disagree with you because I've tried to do some sand sculptures in my day, and nothing ever turns out right. There's got to be some secrets there that y'all don't share with the rest of us, because none of my things ever look like what you do.
Well, it's like I said, I've been doing this for 14 years. So my first handful of sculptures, weren't great, but you stick with it. And if you were fortunate enough, like me, to join a pre-existing professional team, you're brought on as kind of, the new guy. So you might be hauling buckets and, carrying stuff here and there. And you're like, hey, maybe carve something on the back, or just try making that back of the flat wall. So it's really just getting a sense of your tools and all that. And then as your skills progress, all right, give a shot on that logo, do a character over there. And the more and more you work, the more, independent you become on a project. You don't have to have your hand held. And then eventually you start getting sent on solo projects or more high profile things like Disney and stuff like that. So it's all a progression.
Isn't it amazing how life kind of just sometimes directs you in a way that you never expected? I mean, did you ever expect in your wildest dreams that you'd be traveling the world and playing in sand?
No.
As a career?
Yeah. I went into Ringling. Originally, I did a summer program after my junior year of high school, and computer animation was still my first choice because I came into art categorically through cartoons. So I wanted to be like a character designer and that sort of thing. After that program, I basically learned how much time you spend in front of a computer, and I didn't want to do that. So,
yeah.
And I wanted to learn more of the technical aspects of drawing and painting and all of that. No disrespect to the computer animators. I lived with a couple, and they're great people and do amazing stuff. It just wasn't for me to be in that cave, click, click, click for.
Yeah.
years.
I mean, that there's something to that about how you feed your soul and how your brain works. And I'm sure there are some people that enjoy, eating the, granola and drinking coffee and just playing on their computer all day. I imagine some of the places you get to go are kind of cool. I mean, what kind of exotic places has your job taken you to?
So the team Sandtastic is the team that I work for.
Team Sandtastic. I saw that. That's a great. So you didn't start that. That was already in existence?
No. So the team has been around for 30 plus years at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I've only been on for the last 14 only. But there's been a rotating cast of characters over the years. Some folks have been there the whole time. Some folks have moved on to do other things, which is totally fine. But, mostly Florida, U.S., Caribbean. But, through the whole 30-year history, the team has been all over the world. Abu Dhabi, Germany, all places in Europe, Hawaii. But personally, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, I'll be going back there shortly. Green Bay, Wisconsin, all over.
Lots of sand. They need sand sculpture in Green Bay. I've actually heard that. I read that somewhere on social media somewhere. I think.
After they win the Super Bowl, there's a lot of celebration. So
So when I started reading about you, and I love when I get to speak with people that I don't know, and you get to kind of follow them a little bit on social media, and my first question was kind of a dad question. So can I ask you a dad question?
sure.
Son, how are you going to make any money doing this? Like where does the money come from? I mean, I'm sure there's like tournaments where do you like win prize money at tournaments and stuff? Or
So I have actually only done one contest before. So our team does more, to put it shortly, corporate work. So we're working for brands, global corporations, all kinds of events. So we're essentially in
you mean like if there's a big event someplace and then there's a sculpture in the middle and they want something cool and fantastic with their name on it or the logo, the Nike logo or the Disney logo, you guys just pop in and
exactly.
do your art and get paid for it.
Yeah, basically. So the advantage of being in Florida is we've got a lot of conferences that come down and, they want, they're having their beach event. So they want a photo op sand sculpture on the beach. But we do that indoors as well. But it's also not just limited to the beach. Anywhere you can fit a truckload of sand through. So any convention hall, anywhere, we can get that going. Like I said, Green Bay, Wisconsin, we did a big sand sculpture in their shopping mall. So after they won the Super Bowl a few years ago, we did, a big tribute to the team and all that. It's really just finding people with money to burn and wanting to celebrate this, that, or the other. So it's corporate events, weddings, private events. So a range of scales, a lot of like state fairs, things like that too.
Can I ask, what's the strangest thing someone's asked you guys to do?
Strangest thing? There's a couple different answers. I'll give the family-friendly answer. We
are a family-friendly podcast, so
yes.
Thank you.
So to speak kind of to the how do you make money at this, we did a small series of sculptures for what I guess you could describe as a plastics consortium of sorts on Nantucket, actually. So they flew 3 of us out to Nantucket. This group rented out an entire restaurant that sat right on the beach, and we did sculptures that fell under their corporate umbrella for Sharpie, Yankee Candle, Abu Garcia that does like fishing line and stuff like that, and to answer your question, Rubbermaid. So I did your classic yellow Rubbermaid mop bucket as a sand sculpture.
I'm so glad we had this time together. I went right to Carol Burnett. I don't know why. When I see mop bucket, I went right for. How did Disney happen? Because I saw that you had Disney on your resume as well, and obviously they're kind of right here.
Yes.
How did that kind of occur?
So that happened quite a few years ago. We are what they refer to as a preferred vendor, which is not something that happens easily. That happens over time of doing multiple projects. And then you kind of become, if Disney needs a sand sculpture, they call us. So that happened a number of years ago when Disney had something called, I believe it was Disney University. It was before my time, but essentially it came down to we were teaching what we call a sand sculpture clinic, where we show up with shovels, buckets, and kind of rudimentary sand sculpting tools and teach people the tools, tips, and tricks of professional sand sculpture. And it was such a big hit that we actually added that to what we offer. So we do a lot of like corporate team building events. And
I was just going to say that sounds like a corporate event that you would use for team building, and you help me with this and you spray that and right? Because you got to moisturize and
basically we'll show up in the morning, we'll do the company's logo, and then the team shows up, take a big photo with the sculpture, and then we've got shovels, buckets, and teams set up in stations down the beach. They break into teams, and we hold kind of a mock sand sculpture competition. So it's kind of like a bunch of adults at summer camp doing, and they do a skit about it at the end, so they love it.
I've always wanted an adult summer camp. As long as there's just some wine involved, I would be just so ready for it. A little Prosecco on the beach and with a pail and a bucket and some. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But so you kind of said that you don't do a lot of tournaments, but yet you're you're going to be doing the one here on Siesta Key, November 15th through the 18th, right?
Correct. Yeah, 15th to the 18th. I've done one other before because I'm usually just tied up with corporate projects and stuff. So there are sculptors within the sand sculpture community that really kind of focus on the contest circuit, if you will. And they're more independent. And we work with a lot of those same people that will pull on for larger projects or overlapping projects. So I did the Virginia Beach Neptune Festival, which just celebrated its 50th year, I think, actually. And that's a big one. The guys that run Siesta Key Crystal Classic have done that, Brian Wigglesworth and Andy Daly. So I've had a standing invitation to do Crystal Classic for a number of years from Andy. It's overlapped with another big project that we have in November. It will be 13, 14 years now, we build a 35-foot tall Christmas tree in West Palm Beach. And so that's like 600, 700 tons of sand. So it's like 7 to 8 of us for about 10 days or so. So it's always overlapped a little bit, but luckily the schedule's worked out this year. So I'm only missing that first day. So I'll be going right from Siesta to West Palm Beach.
So officially it's called the Siesta Key International Sand Sculpting Festival. Did I get that right?
It sounds like you'd know better than me.
Siesta Key Crystal Classic. Anyway, so it's November 15th through the 18th. It's like 4 days. What happens on those 4 days? Because it sounds like it's a party. Because I read that there's like music and there's food and
it's a big festival. I mean, so the sculptors are actually working well before that, building the display kind of sponsor sculpture and then all of our personal pieces. And we finished the sculptures during the first 2-3 days of the festival itself. So if you come on those first 2 or 3 days, you can see it in process. And then I think we finish midday on the 17th. And then the 18th, they're just set, fully finished. But yeah, there's bands, all kinds of vendors, food. So it's just a big party out on the beach. And especially after back-to-back hurricanes, this is going to be a real nice visit to normalcy after all. So I got the email a couple days ago that, yes, we are still moving forward. So I was amazed that was happening. So clearly there's a lot of, work through the municipalities and private agencies and stuff, really getting stuff back to normal enough for us to be able to work. We did have to switch hotels, I know that, but
you're preaching to the choir, dude. Seriously. So my main venue was taken over by FEMA as of last Wednesday. So I lost my main venue. My events were starting November 8th. So I'm scrambling in my spare time to help make sure that some of my events go on. And there's I think there's a really strong sense of and yes, my organization is called Sarasota Rising, but that idea of rising together and overcoming the elements and that kind of can-do, pull together, arts heal kind of. I mean, there's all sorts of great messaging there about what the arts do. I don't think anyone was expecting these kinds of storms. I think that what a beautiful way to kind of heal ourselves from having some folks have had sand 3 feet deep in their house. To be able to now go and see sand in a beautiful format might be just exactly what the doctor ordered, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting dichotomy to go from seeing sand being so destructive and then built into something so creative. It should be pretty interesting for sure.
So this is international. So that means that people are coming from all over the world then for this. I know a few years ago, I actually attended this and I was amazed at how gorgeous it was. It was a beautiful day. But so is there a group of people that kind of from around the world that all kind of do this and each other and you text each other and follow each other on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a niche business to be a part of. So it's a fairly tight-knit community. I don't know everybody, but especially through social media and everything, you kind of get to see people's work and what everybody's doing. But yeah, we've got folks from all over the world coming. There's a good handful of folks from here in the States. But yeah, a lot of international sculptors, a lot of, truly the highest skilled sculptors in the world, get invited to this. So it's an honor to be even considered, honestly.
Oh, so this is invitation only. Whoa. Well, that's good to know. Gosh, I was hoping I was going to be able to, maybe pop over and do a little something, something, but I guess that's not going to happen. Huh?
They might have a little kids pile or something.
Thank you. That's right where I belong. Thank you so much. I'll bring my pail and and I'll put the little, sunscreen on my nose. So in one of your posts, I was really kind of intrigued. Did I see fire coming out of one of your sculptures?
Yes. So that would be from
what the hell was that?
That was at the Sugar Sand Festival in Clearwater Beach.
Okay.
So that happens every mid-April. Our team founded that festival. It has changed hands a bit, but I'm still a part of it, one of the contributing sculptors. So a similar situation where you've got folks from the States, but then international folks that come in. It's also an invitational. But that's another event that goes on, like I said, every mid-April for about 2 weeks. 21,000 square foot tent right on the beach. So all the sculptures are housed indoors. All the sculptors work on a collaborative canyon of sand sculpture. So it's a different
interesting
every year. And you just walk through and you're just surrounded by 8, 10, 12-foot sculptures of a different theme every year. So what you saw was kind of the sponsor presentation sculpture outside of the tent. So for Sugar Sand, partners with Clearwater Gas. So they always run a line and incorporate gas somehow in the display sculpture. So there's been volcanoes, there's been dragons, and the one that you probably saw was my fire-spitting, rat rod.
It was a car. Yeah.
So that's always fun.
So are there limits though to what you can do? I mean, adding fire seems like that's unfair. That's like an unfair advantage. Are there limits? Do they give you like you can't do this or you can't do this or you've got to use this? Are there parameters when you're doing these sculptures?
I mean, you can do a sand version of anything. Obviously, you can't necessarily hang an arm out in space without supporting it with something underneath. Well, a load-bearing bush or something like that. So it does have, its limitations, you can say, but there are ways to sculpt anything out of sand in some way. So it might be more of a relief sculpture rather than a full 3D, limbs and branches sticking out on their own, compared to like a stone or clay sculpture where it has an armature inside holding all that weight. The sand is purely just a compacted pile of sand.
And so you can't add things like a something inside to support an arm or something like that. That's like not that's part of the rules.
Well, rules. I don't know if there are rules necessarily. It's just kind of not the way that it's done. I don't even know if an armature in a sand sculpture would even do a whole lot. It's just not.
Look at you thinking about it though right now. I think I maybe just gave you like a little mini epiphany right there. You're like, if I did this, if I did that, I can see you. I can see you thinking. What's your? I always love this when I talk to an artist, and you've got a lot of, you have outdoor, you have the sun elements, you have different kinds of sand. You probably know more about sand than we want to know. Do you usually use a specific kind of sand that is better for this?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So there are sands that are better. But what I like to tell, everybody, you can make something out of any sand. It's just a matter of how extreme you can get. So for quote unquote bad sand, you might end up with more of a pyramid than a skyscraper. So if you've got nice sticky sand that compacts well, you can get significant height with a tighter footprint. If you've got bad sand that doesn't compact very well, you need a wider footprint to get to that same height. So there are, different stuff that you can use. Generally, beach sand isn't as strong or compactable, if you will, as sand that you pull out of the ground, because you're dealing with what we call loam, your silts, your dirt, and stuff that makes sand sticky. Beach sand is generally a very washed sand with the tide. It's taking out sticky stuff. Now, that said, places like Siesta, places like Clearwater Beach, That's more of a coral silica-based sand. So geologically speaking, that's locking in like puzzle pieces more than what you'd see in like Daytona Beach, which has like coarser grains. That's more like trying to compact a bag of marbles compared to a pack of puzzle pieces. So even from one end of the beach to the other, the sand can behave differently. As you dig down into a beach, the sand can change in layers. So every pile has a different learning curve.
I did not expect to learn anything today.
So it seems very simple. It's like, just sand and water. They're just playing. Like, no, it's a construction project before it's an artistic project. And there is, some science and geology to it. But that all said, we're playing in the sand.
So when you're part of a tournament of any kind, do they give you a certain amount of tools? Do they all give you the same thing? So how do you know what you're starting with? And do you know what you're starting with exactly every single time? So the Crystal Classic, what do you get?
Yeah, so I mean, they treat us very well. They put us up, they feed us, all the bells and whistles there. As far as the sculptures themselves, we are given a pile of sand. Everybody gets a delivered pile of sand, so it's beach friendly. So they'll just flatten it out afterwards. Everybody's given a hose, so we don't have to haul buckets from the ocean, which is its own chore, trust me. And then we are given forms, a couple different styles depending on what people are used to working with. We have wooden forms and flexi forms. Wooden forms are just 2 feet tall of varying lengths with 2x4 stringers. We nail those together with duplex nails, fill the box with sand and water, compact that up in a few layers, and then it's just smaller box, smaller box, smaller box. Take the walls of the box off, and you're just left with a compacted carving block. You use the boxes below as your scaffolding and then just work top to bottom. So the flexi forms are the same thing. It's just a thicker plastic. It's called a rhizome barrier used to prevent roots from spreading underground. And they just C-clamp those together and then same deal. So in that sense, it'd be a cylinder, 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 and then same deal working top to bottom.
Kind of like a cement form for those us lay people that when you're like doing a sidewalk or something, only this is something where you're actually making something or creating something. So you all kind of end up, and you can choose whatever you want when it comes to what.
I mean, the flexi forms and the wood forms, it gets you to the same place. You just end up with a square block or a round one, and people have different schools of thought what works better. I go more wood than flexi, but I've seen both work perfectly fine. So it just depends, you just got to make sure you're very compact because you don't want to pull a form and have 2 days of work slide on you.
Right. And you've had that happen, unfortunately, probably.
Yeah, it happens to everybody. But if you do your job right, the idea is that it shouldn't happen. So,
and it will not happen this time, I promise.
Knocking on wood.
Knocking wood. Knock, knock. What's your least favorite thing when it comes to what you do? What's the least? What's on that list of that makes you kind of go? Is there something?
Shoveling never gets easier. So there's always fair amounts of shoveling, an hour to days worth of shoveling, and hauling forms and hammering nails and stuff. So like the big tree we do in West Palm Beach, I'm not holding anything but a shovel and a hammer for the first 2, if not 3 days of that project before we even get to pull our sculpting tools out. So yeah, like I said, it's a construction project before it's a creative project. So the labor of it never gets easier. That said, I do, within the category of sand sculpture, I do like that it is physical. It is generally outdoors. I do a lot more indoor stuff than people would assume, but it's physical. Get to travel. It's always something a bit new every day, so it keeps it interesting.
Where does the inspiration for a piece come from? I mean, do you have it all planned out before you start? But then I'm sure you've had to pivot. I mean, with the storm and everything, everyone else is pivoting these days, but I'm sure you probably are in a situation sometimes where you're like, well, that's not going to work. And now what do you do? How do you manage what you want to do with what you're able to do?
Yeah. So with that, we generally like to go in with kind of bullet points and maybe a loose idea of what we're going to do. Is like, okay, we need this logo and then these 2 or 3 icons. So to go in with a set blueprint, and have your client expect to see that 100% can kind of shoot yourself in the foot because there are so many variables, weather, sand, logistical issues. If the truck arrives late and you only end up with 2.5 days as opposed to 3 days, that can really change things. So being able to adapt, being able to, simplify things with still, checking off all those bullet points of, this logo, that logo, because there's a way to carve things more intricately or more simply, but still, get them done in a certain way. So, being able to roll with the punches and make edits as you go is definitely essential to being a pro sand sculptor.
Well, that's a lot of teamwork and a lot of forethought, but then it's thinking on your feet.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you've got to.
Sometimes, like if we're working with Disney, they will provide us with a set sketch from one of their artists. It needs to look like this. So,
right.
Not to say that it's impossible to deliver on that, but to leave some wiggle room tends to, make things a bit more comfortable.
So where did the thing? So when a festival is done, I've seen some of these on television. They blow up the sculpture. Does that happen all the time? Where they implode or a sculpture when you're done with them?
I've seen that a couple times. I think there was an event called Sand Blasters or something like that.
Yeah, maybe that's where I saw it.
Yeah. I've never seen that done. I usually only see the post event. The big front end loader comes in and knocks it down. But
is that what happens?
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I thought my life in the theater was transitory where, you spend months and months and months working on a project and then you open and you close and it's done. But you have to do all this creativity, and then do you stand there and watch it go down, or is it better for you not to?
I have, but you have your photos. That's kind of all you need.
It would hurt my heart. My heart hurts. Is there anything that you haven't done yet? Is there something in your future that you're like, I've always wanted to do this, or this is my dream, is to be able to ... Is there something on your list like that?
Well, Crystal Classic will be the first time, will be the second time I'm doing the contest, but the first time I'll be doing a solo piece. I was in a pairs piece for Virginia Beach, and I'm on my own for this, so I have been looking forward to doing that. But yeah, even just getting into more of the contest world to kind of flex that creative muscle, because, I am more than ecstatic about my profession. There is a lot of, corporate logo and that type of thing, so you don't always get to flex that creative muscle as much. So it'll be really nice to, do something of my own accord on my own design. So looking forward to that for sure.
There'll be a lot of us there rooting you on. I'll put on my sunscreen and my big floppy hat, and I'll bring my pail just in case you need a hand. Okay, just in case. I'll be your background support system. How's that?
That's good.
Dean, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. This has been, I got to tell you, really quite a learning experience. And I think part of what you need to do as a listener is make sure that you participate. Those are great dates, mid-November, the 15th through the 18th, and out on Siesta Key, Crystal Classic International Sand Sculpting Festival. And you get to see Dean Arscott in his element, creating magic. Is that what we're going to call it?
Yeah, sure. Creating ephemeral magic. So see it while it lasts. Yeah, they always look better in person. So definitely get down there. The photos are great, but everything is always way more magical in person.
And that's how we'll end this episode. Thank you so much, Dean. This is Beyond the Masterpiece with Visit Sarasota and Sarasota Rising. Thanks so much for listening. Be excellent out there. Be good to each other. And get yourself to a beach ASAP. Thanks. Bye. Thanks for being in our audience. I'm Jeffrey Kinn, Sarasota Rising Living Arts Festival. If you'd like more information about the incredible work that Visit Sarasota does, please visit them at visitsarasota.com. Thanks so much for being a part of our audience.